Live from our studios in Frankfurt, Germany, this is the AFN Evening News.
Good evening. A second NATO airstrike against Bosnian Serbs was averted this weekend. The order for air attacks came less than 2 weeks after NATO jets downed 4 Bosnian Serb warplanes. The order was rescinded after Serb guns fell silent and bad weather obscured targets. NATO planes were ordered to attack Serb positions near Bihać in northwestern Bosnia Saturday night, following a series of attacks on French positions with heavy machine gun and anti-aircraft fire. UN ground controllers called off the strike early Sunday. It isn't every day one of the blue and white United States of America planes lands at Rhein-Main Air Base, Germany. One did last night, and a passenger took advantage of the opportunity. We get more from Army Sergeant Kelly Rowe.
While his plane was being refueled at Rhein-Main Air Base, Germany, General John Shalikashvili, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, took the opportunity to talk to some of the people who make the nightly airdrop missions to the former Yugoslavia possible.
I can't think of a greater success story than what you are all involved in. You ought to take tremendous pride in the professionalism with which this is being done, I guess, feel good in your heart by the fact that you're doing something that helps an awful lot of people that would be starving and dying if you didn't provide humanitarian aid to them. I don't think that's an exaggeration.
The general also asked and answered some questions.
Do you get enough spare parts, sir? Is this spare parts business working all right or not? Oh, yeah?
We're working on it, but none of them are doing.
Are they new spare parts that come here and rebuilt?
The chairman also received a briefing from Brigadier General Donald Loringer, Rhein-Main's commander, about the airdrop mission, and it provided an opportunity to get feedback to take back to Washington.
Try to sustain 20,000 Americans and whatever else you're doing out of one airfield and competing with the Germans and the French and the Brits and everyone else who has to use that airfield.
After his visit, it was back aboard the jet for the return flight to Washington. Reporting from Rhein-Main Air Base, Germany, Sergeant Kelly Rowe, AFN News.
General Shalikashvili said as soon as the U.S. has agreements like the ones in Sarajevo, flights will begin in Tuzla. He's fearful nations will pull their troops out of the former Yugoslavia because the war has gone on for so long. General Shalikashvili's visit to Somalia was to gauge the final days of the U.S. military withdrawal. America's top general told a flotilla of sailors and Marines they must remain off Somali's shore for at least another 6 weeks as a security blanket for U.S. citizens and diplomats. The 3,000 soldiers, airmen, and Marines still ashore are to head for home before March 31st. That will leave about 1,000 American diplomats and civilians on shore and 50 U.S. Marines to guard them. During the communist era, military broadcasting in Poland was censored. Reporters had to have a certificate from the Defense Department to produce a program. The production was supervised, and an officer approved the final product before it aired. AFN's Ann Mulligan visited Warsaw and found that Polish military broadcasting operates freely today, but there's still some differences when compared to AFN.
The AFN Southern Region.
AFN is a Europe-wide network of stations. Enlisted personnel are the anchors and reporters. Poland, like most of Europe, operates a civilian, state-run network. The Polish military produces only programs that run on that network. The broadcasters are all officers, but work in civilian clothes. While we were there, the U.S. EUCOM military-to-military contact team's visit was a lead story.
We're from the United States European Command in Stuttgart, Germany, meeting with our counterparts in Poland.
Redakcja wojskowa telewizji polskiej funkcjonuje już ponad 35 lat.
The editor-in-chief remembers when the communists were in power, they could only run stories critical of a military person up to the rank of corporal. Now they can focus on real problems such as officer misconduct and funding. Typical are programs like this documentary on the war years and coverage of today's Polish military, which is supporting the UN in Cambodia and former Yugoslavia. They say open and free reporting like this has boosted the Polish military's approval rating with the public to an all-time high 72%. In Warsaw, Poland, Ann Mulligan, AFN News.
Budget talks are the center of attention on Capitol Hill. Tuesday, Secretary of the Army Togo West and the other service secretaries appeared before the Senate Armed Services Committee to defend DOD's fiscal year 95 budget request. Kim Hancock has more.
It's a budget we can work with. That's the message Secretary of the Army, Togo West, presented to the Senate Armed Services Committee. All three service secretaries appeared before the committee to assure Congress DOD's budget request meets the nation's requirements. For the Army, that request amounts to $61.1 billion to maintain a trained and ready force.
I enlist your help in continuing to stress three critical elements that provide such an Army: quality soldiers, quality training, and quality equipment.
West said the budget provides for the things the Army needs: an increase in operation and maintenance funds, money for quality of life improvements, and the continuation of the Comanche helicopter program. But West noted we have to be very careful where we invest our dollars.
Yes, we will need to have an uptick. We will have to make those choices ourselves in our modernization accounts in the next budget or two.
You got some tough decisions, don't you?
Yes, sir.
But money isn't the only concern congressmen have with the budget. They also want to know what kind of impact the drawdown is having on soldiers and their families.
But I must say that in my personal encounters with them, I have not found that brittleness that suggests that they are strung to the edge.
What about the families?
What I have found is their families, okay. What I have found is a concern among their commanders that we are beginning to see warning signs, and that we ought not push this situation much longer without some correction to it.
The budget testimony isn't over. Next week, Secretary West and Chief of Staff General Gordon Sullivan are scheduled to appear before the Senate Appropriations Committee. Kim Hancock, Capitol Hill.
When the 37th Airlift Squadron moves from Rhein-Main to Ramstein, Germany, the pilots will already be familiar with the runway. Air Force Sergeant Jerry Cormier reports training flights bring C-130s to Ramstein regularly.
It's like riding the biggest roller coaster in the world. These aren't the kinds of moves a C-130 normally makes, but this isn't a normal flight. It's a training flight, a chance for co-pilot Keith Wesley to test his skills with guidance from his instructor, Captain Mark Ott. Ramstein is already playing a bigger role in the operations of the 37th Airlift Squadron, but not just because of the move.
We come down here on an everyday basis, do the drawdown. A lot of the bases have been closing, so it gives us fewer and fewer bases to actually go to train. So this is just part of everyday training for us.
An advance team is due to arrive at Ramstein this spring to make preparations for the C-130 crews and their families.
Once the squadron moves down here, it'll be easier on our operations. We won't have to fly to different bases to get our training done. We can do all our training here, so it'll help out.
These proficiency training missions mean more than just training. They're also giving the pilots of the 37th Airlift Squadron a preview of things to come. Sergeant Jerry Cormier, Air Force News, Ramstein Air Base, Germany.
San Vito Air Station's vehicle... The new commander of UN peacekeepers in the former Yugoslavia says there must be quicker decisions on ordering possible airstrikes in Bosnia. The United States and France claim the current structure led to an intolerable delay that jeopardized French troops under attack by Serb gunners over the weekend. Currently, the decision is in the hands of the United Nations civilian chief in Zagreb. Hungarian board financier George Soros is set to take over the archives and research unit of Radio Free Europe by April. Radio Free Europe broadcast from Germany to Eastern Europe during the Cold War, and its counterpart, Radio Liberty, broadcast into the former Soviet Union. The end of the Cold War and U.S. budget cuts have forced them to cut back and redefine their role. The Soros Foundation will move the research unit and archive to Prague. You may have heard that it's National Women's History Month or National Nutrition Month, but you probably didn't know it's National Frozen Food Month. AFN's J.B. Leedy shows us how some people are celebrating.
They say you should never go grocery shopping on an empty stomach, but you might want to do just that this month, especially if you commissary shop at Heidelberg or Rhein-Main. Those are the two stores selected by the Defense Commissary Agency to compete against stateside grocery stores for the 1994 Penguin Awards. The competition centers around merchandising of frozen foods, an idea that elicits mixed reactions.
Kind of fun. Kind of like a little bit of America back here, you know, because usually the commissary is kind of boring, and certainly a little bit more exciting for this Saturday morning.
It looks weird. We wouldn't be here if we didn't come here for haircuts first.
I just knew it was National Frozen Food Month. That's the only reason I'm here.
Shoppers also had a variety of reasons for buying frozen food.
I sure like it. It tastes just like fresh.
Like when you're in such a hurry and you have no time to take some stuff out of the refrigerator to cook, you know.
Well, save my time on shopping. I can put it in the freezer.
But does everybody agree on what the best frozen food is?
I think so.
Ice cream.
Ice cream.
Say ice cream. You want ice cream? Heidelberg has earned silver medals in the promotional competition for the past 2 years. Maybe this will be the year they come in first. From Heidelberg, Germany, I'm J.B. Leedy, AFN News.
He's a foreign exchange student from Hanover, Minnesota, visiting the talented and gifted students at Atterbury Elementary School in Frankfurt, Germany. In our next story, specialist Lee Allen brings us the adventures of PFC Pluto.
Inside of his flight, inside of his travel log, there's the information that we want the pilot to fill out. For example, it says name of the pilot, home base of the airplane, kind of airplane, speed of airplane, what was the reason for the flight, what was Pluto's job on the flight, what was the weather, and then there's a section for pilot's comments, and then a section for Pluto's comments. And then also here's a copy of Pluto's enlistment papers, so that the pilot will know that Pluto is a bona fide member of the U.S. Army.
Well, the first trip that I've gone on with Pluto is to Run Mine Air Base, and we got to tour a C-130 airplane, and there we picked up Pluto from coming back from Sarajevo. I think he's enjoyed going to Sarajevo because he could help out the people there on the crew. He was promoted to a crew dog, and so he could fly on the plane, and he was making people happy that were injured. We went and looked at the tanks, and the Army people, they let us go inside the tanks, and they showed us the turret go around and how the shooting tube, whatever that thing's called, how it goes up and down. And then they took us in the tank simulator and let us shoot some other tanks. I think he liked it a lot.
Pluto's ambassadorship has afforded the children in Germany an opportunity to enrich their education by going places and doing things that most kids can only dream of. Meanwhile, the students in Minnesota can share these adventures firsthand through photographs and home videos.
I think he'll have quite a tale to tell when his adventures in Germany and Europe are over.
Specialist Lee Allen, AFN News.
Pluto is now on his way to the United Kingdom, and from there he'll travel on to Korea before making his way back home to Hanover, Minnesota. Americans in Europe have become accustomed to seeing their favorite wrestlers from the World Wrestling Federation
special Hungarian ancient instrument, national instrument.
Maroshi's band was the first Eastern European band to perform at last year's NATO festival in Kaiserslautern. The USAFE band recorded the album in a concert hall in Kusel, Germany, and it should be ready in 6 to 8 months. Although it may be true that music knows no boundaries, problems do arise.
It's very old music, original music, like, say, written before World War II, and it's in the same handwritten manuscript music, so that's probably the most difficult thing we're getting through right now, is just getting to learn it, where it's going, and all the correct notes.
The band distributes the tapes and CDs they produce as promotional items and as thank yous to sponsors, distinguished visitors, and as symbols of goodwill. Airman Chris Hatch, AFN News.
The largest civil rights organization in America, the NAACP, is committed to ensuring equality among minority groups through excellence and achievement. This weekend, its European chapter honored several Americans in the German state of Hessen.
I think it's just a recognition for some community involvement, and it's just a chance to be recognized in front of some people who are kind of important, and I think that's kind of cool.
I feel honored. This is a great achievement because I volunteer in my community, and it's nice to be recognized, and it's my senior year, and it's like going out with a bang.
Well, I was quite surprised. I didn't know that this was going to even happen, and I was very impressed and very excited about it.
And it was the Hessen NAACP Excellence Through Citizenship Award, honoring youths and adults for leadership and commitment to community service.
The American kaleidoscope is far from perfect, but it's fully represented in this room by people who, in my mind, epitomize what America should be all about.
And I deal with teaching children. We do activities for the kids. We do things to try to keep them off the streets. You know, and it's not easy. But it takes, even if it's just a few people, we do what we can to, to give back to give back to those kids what we receive. We receive a lot. And we in our community are, everywhere. We've gotten away from that. So what we're trying to do is bring back those values. So it's not easy, but the reward is great.
America is a great country only when diversity becomes its source of strength and not its source of division. We've had it both ways in our country, and we know which one works best. So I salute you, and again, I thank you for inviting me here tonight. Thank you.
Cecily Allen, AFN News.
The USAFE Powerlifting Championships took place this weekend at Rhein-Main Air Base, Germany. Specialist Deborah Cravey brings us the highlights.
Final day of powerlifting provided some heavy competition. The day began with the squat event, and lifters in 6 different weight classes tried to make light of those barbells. Soosterberg coach and national champion Gene Bell says it takes a while to gear up for competition.
At least 9 months of conditioning training, stable, off-the-job environment, get plenty of rest, good diet, that type of thing.
The squatters were given 3 attempts to make their lifts, and those who got at least one good show moved on to the bench press. Rhein-Main coach Mike Smith was one of those survivors.
I did pretty good. I got my personal best today, 501 squat. Previous best was 485, so I'm pretty happy.
The final event was the deadlift, and 29 competitors made it to the showdown. When it was over, Greg Rutherford of Bitburg placed first in the 82.5-kilogram weight group. Ev Foster of Simbach took it for the 90K class, and Soosterberg's Ned Gray ran off with first place for the 100Ks. His teammate Chris Jackson won the 110K class, while Sylvester Phillips of Simbach grabbed the title in the 125 group. The winner in the over 125 category was Sharif El-Khali of Soosterberg, lifting a total of 1,548.5 pounds in all 3 events. Bitburg's Mark Ficara came in second in his class.
I hit all my best lifts today. I did well for myself. If he pulled the way he pulled, he deserved to win. So.
The Soosterberg Wolfhounds took home the team trophy with a total of 49 points. Specialist Deborah Cravey, AFN Sports.
And finally, the Army Air Force Final Four basketball tournament wound up this weekend. The Mannheim Lady Mustangs took the women's title by downing Darmstadt 84-75 in the All-Army finale. In the men's division, Bitburg rallied to beat Mildenhall 93-92 in the first game of the final matchup. Mildenhall took the championship by downing Bitburg 121-94 in Game 2. And that's our newscast. As we say so long, we leave you with another look at the NAACP Awards Dinner, where deaf and hard of hearing students from Atterbury Elementary School performed the African song, So Long.